Hello and welcome back to the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. This is Penny Sansevieri.
And Amy Cornell.
And so today we're kind of turning, so I get a lot of requests from authors on media training. I know Amy, that's, a lot of those questions when we're working with authors about media training. In this episode, we're really turning media training on its head because everything is media. And we're going to give you some examples and some takeaways and all the things. But I want to start off first just reminding y'all we've gotten some really great texts from listeners. Thank you so much for writing us. We love it. It's such a personal way to connect with both of us over the podcast. So send us your show ideas, feedback on the show, what you'd like to see more of, etc. Text the word podcast to 888-402-8940, and we'd love to hear from you. We've been having a lot of fun with the texting, so I'm really excited about that. Okay, so let's dig into this. Everything is media, and I think that a lot of times authors really forget about that. When I was first in business 25 years ago, we had TV, radio, print, and by today's standards, that seems super boring, right, Amy? Because now we have all the things.
Right. It's like TV, radio, and print now just seems so slow moving compared to everything else. It's like, wow, it's really expanded the number of potential opportunities, which is very exciting.
But yes, and not necessarily, but I mean, in terms of expanding it, this is where I think that authors tend to forget that everything is a stage. We talk about this too. Everything is your resume, but this goes, I think, a little bit further, right? Not to put too much pressure on y'all listening, but we are constantly on stage. Every post on Facebook, every video clip, every reply, it shapes your public narrative. It shapes your image, right? And I think that when, we get this a lot of times with authors say, I want to be on TikTok because I saw XYZ go viral. And part of sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to what goes viral and what doesn't. But a lot of it has to do with authenticity, right? So as opposed to, I'm going to create this video because I want to go viral, then you have the author. There was a video. I don't know if you remember that, Amy. This is now probably a couple of years ago, but it was an author sitting in a grocery store doing a book signing. Mm-hmm. And somebody took not even him. It wasn't even him that did it. Somebody else did a TikTok of him sitting in this grocery store, and it may have even been a Walmart, doing his book signing, and the whole thing just went viral. And there was nobody at the table. He was just there by himself. And it was a super sweet, heartwarming moment. And I think he got asked back, and then he had like a line out the door or something.
Very cool.
Yeah. All right. So part of the reason why we've talked a lot about branding, we talk a lot about messaging, but I think to reframe the whole topic of media, part of the reason why this is important is I think we oftentimes forget that everything that we put out there is all part of defining who we are as an author. I mean, you see this a lot of times too when you're evaluating authors or giving them assessments and things like that, right?
Right. Yes. And why this is also extra timely is because media, unlike in the past, media doesn't happen to you anymore. You really have to be engaged in creating the right atmosphere and the right opportunities for yourself.
Yep.
And it really does make a difference about what you put out there because, again, we've said it before, it sounds super harsh, but publishing a book isn't news. But you can make yourself newsworthy and interesting and unique and all those things. But those are all actions that you need to be taking. That is not going to happen by sitting at your desk and, refreshing your Amazon sales stats or anything like that. Like you really have to be actively involved in making yourself coverage worthy. And to your point, Penny, everything you put out there, That's all a part of it. Everything that, everything that you put out for readers and influencers and even bigger media to potentially consume and connect with you on and judge you by, if we're being totally honest, it all matters.
Yeah, it all matters. And I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the more you put out there and the more you control it yourself, ensuring it's, on point and quality and, positioned for the people that you're trying to appeal to, the better.
Yeah. And, we used to talk a lot about sound bites. So I used to do, I've never done official media training, but I've done enough media with authors that I can kind of walk them through, like, okay, you want to make sure you have your sound bite. You want to make sure that you have, what I mean, that you know what you're going to say. In this new media world, developing your reader soundbite, which is essentially your elevator pitch. We just did a show on elevator pitches. So if you didn't catch it, be sure to tune into that. But it is a succinct, natural way to describe your book that feels conversational, so not rehearsed, so not like, so practice this, right? Because you want to make, like, if you get asked and elevator pitches, we don't always all exclusively use them in social media or in podcasts or whatever. You could be going to a conference or meeting somebody in a grocery store. You're like, oh, you wrote a book. What's your book about? Boom, there's your elevator pitch. And you may not feel comfortable telling a neighbor your elevator pitch in the produce aisle at the grocery store, but I'm just saying, you want to make sure and have it ready. And you can use this across everything. And in the elevator pitch episode, we talked about the author pages, and so it's not just podcast intros, social media bios. And if you listen to, so there's a really great podcast that I love, and it's called Something You Should Know. He used to Mike Carruthers used to have, like, we've had authors on both his podcast and then he used to do this soundbite on radio, and he may still do it. But basically he would just talk about something that was interesting that week or whatever. But on his show, he interviews authors pretty much exclusively. Like, everybody that he has on there is an author. And it's interesting when you listen to the show, who really has their reader soundbite nailed versus who doesn't. And you can, if you listen to enough of the shows, you can really get a sense of, what I'm talking about. All right. So y'all, this is something, Amy and I were talking about this in the green room. Body language, voice, energy, all of that matters, especially on Zoom. Let me just say this about that. I've done a lot of virtual Zoom events, taught a lot on Zoom. Everybody listening to me within the sound of my voice, if you've ever attended a Zoom session, do not eat, let your cat walk across the keyboard, or in one really unfortunate situation, get up and adjust your pants. Like that literally happened. And you know what the problem with that is? First off, like, don't do anything in a Zoom session or in a video. Like, because some podcasts, I know they like to record video because they also have corresponding YouTube channels. But show up like you're at a job interview. I mean, I'm not saying you have to wear a suit and tie or, whatever, or a suit. Don't do anything that you wouldn't do. Like, you're probably not going to bring, Fluffy the cat to an interview and let the cat walk across the stage. Like, just stop. Right. And it's very distracting. Right. And people eating on camera. I'm like, really? Like, is that what we're doing now?
Mm-hmm.
So, the world is watching, right? And attention spans are really, really short. So your body language, voice, and energy still matter. I mean, listen, we've actually had a couple of shows that Amy and I have recorded that never ended up in the podcast stream because we felt like our energy wasn't, like, maybe there was just a lot going on that day, or we recorded late in the day and we're both kind of tired, whatever. It didn't match the vibe of the show. I mean, because we're really particular about that, right?
Yes, exactly. It makes such a big difference to do your research, make sure that you are, I mean, we get those emails all the time too, Penny.
Yeah.
Pitching us for the show for certain things. And it's like, It's hard for me not to reply sometimes. I'll be candid. I can be petty. Like, but it really is, it makes such a big difference that you are, and this is for everything, showing up prepared. I know it's easy to check things off the list, but have you noticed this too on social media, Penny, when you can really tell if somebody was engaged in their response, or if they
Yes.
or if
Yeah.
they have their account set up for auto replies or something like that. I mean, I guess it's a high quality problem to have. If your engagement is so through the roof, you have to set up auto replies, then, congrats to you. I want all your secrets. But at the end of the day, it really is, it makes such a big difference to take a step back. And we've done shows on managing your time and, not getting overwhelmed with stuff. But it really does at this point make sense to dedicate certain times in your schedule, I think, to working on these kind of things where you can really be there 100%.
Yeah.
Focus on what you need to create, focus on what you need to prep for, focus on, follow the accounts, listen to shows, read their content. And before you engage, make sure you come up with something that's really thoughtful and unique, because I can tell you, professionals, influencers, they can spot it miles away.
Yeah.
If you're being inauthentic, if you're checking something off the list just to kiss their ass,
Well, but the other thing though too is I think that a lot of people, and Amy and I have had these conversations many times. A lot of people want to do Zoom. Like when I do initial author calls, and like they really want to do Zoom. And Zoom used to always really stress me out. And Zoom stressed me out because like I had a green screen, I had to get the green screen up, like all the things, like I said, at my desk. Now I have like this cool little corner in my office that's set up, and first off, it looks better. Anything looks better. I mean, green screens work very well, but this looks so much better, so much more authentic. If you're going to be doing if you're doing book club meetups with, book clubs, and you're doing them across the country and you're doing them virtually, or you're doing school events that you're doing virtually, whatever, you got to make sure you've got your video game going. Not just because like this video might wind up, the guy adjusting his pants or whatever might wind up in social media and, oh my gosh, what's he doing? But it sends a vibe. The way you show up in video, it sends a vibe. It sends, it's your energy. It's how professional you are. And I've learned the hard way, because I really, for years, like, as Amy knows, I really struggled with, with doing video. But when you have something, and if you're doing a lot of podcasts, you are going to end up doing video, because a lot of these folks have YouTube companion channels. Just make sure that you got your video game going.
No, yeah.
For sure. The other thing that I think is, so can we just have a conversation about negative comments? I mean, so if you're being interviewed, and again, whether you're being interviewed or whether there are negative comments on a social media post that you did, or you're getting a lot of negative comments in something. So let me just give you a firsthand example. I did a video. I have, as those of you who've listened to us know, I have kind of a love-hate relationship with TikTok, but so I did a video about one of our shows, and it was about creative ways that AI can help authors manage all the things. So, coming up with social media ideas. It was not about let AI write your book. Anyway, so I did a little promo video for it, and I put it on Instagram. Great. They loved it. I put it on TikTok, and everybody lost their bloody mind. Right. And at first I was like, your first inclination when people are responding negatively is like, well, I have to respond back, and I have to respond back. You literally can never win that battle.
Right.
So at some point I was just like, hey, thank you so much for your feedback. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you hate AI with your entire heart and soul. Good luck to you, whatever. So those negative, no matter how much you try to control the narrative, negative comments are going to happen. If you're doing an interview on a podcast, depending on how seasoned the host is, you may get an off-topic question that you weren't really prepared for. And, you can just you don't have to just say, well, I wasn't expecting that question, Dan. You can kind of lead them back to the topic. And I've seen it again, not to plug, I have no I have no horse in this race, but not to plug the Something You Should Know show. But listening to that show is really kind of like you can really tell when somebody is bringing their A game and they're prepared, because Mike's a really good interviewer and he will, doesn't intentionally throw them a curveball, but he asks them tough questions because he knows his listeners want to dive deeper, right? You got to be prepared for all of that. Bad reviews. This is something, Amy, do you want to take this one? Because I know that authors, they want to respond to all the bad reviews.
Yeah. The answer is don't.
Right. Right.
Short answer is don't. The longer answer is that's part of what we're doing here. It sounds scary to put it this way, but when you write a book and you publish it and you put it out to the world, yes, what fuels you is people loving it. But at the same time, you have to accept the fact that you are still putting something out there to be consumed and to be judged and to be experienced. And you can't control what happens once it lands in somebody's hands or on their Kindle,
Right.
And
right.
I think that what to focus on also is, we did a show recently on reframing your mindset, that you really have to think of, I know your initial reaction will be to be pissed off, and that's fair. But really, if the review is thoughtful, even if it didn't go the way you would like it to go, if the review is thoughtful and they actually gave genuine feedback, like they really read the book, then honestly, that's actually the best you can hope for. I know, unfortunately, sometimes you get those BS, one-liner reviews that just infuriate me too. Penny,
Yeah.
we've talked about this before, how I wish Amazon, for all the things that they do to kind of mess with authors in terms of reviews and pulling reviews and all this stuff, I really wish they would focus their energy on preventing those just nonsense, useless reviews.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, those just drive me nuts. But honestly, if somebody was thoughtful and they wrote the review and you can tell they probably really did read the book, that's the best you can hope for if you're getting a negative review. And the ones that are the one-liners, that's just life, unfortunately. Don't respond to those. You can mark it unhelpful on Amazon. That's always cathartic. And we do recommend that you do thumbs up the help, mark reviews helpful that are positive on your page. You can ask your network to do the same thing. There's nothing wrong with that. I definitely make a point to mark certain reviews helpful that genuinely are. And I mark certain reviews that you could tell are just nasty and weren't well thought out, or somebody didn't even read the book. I mark those as unhelpful because it makes me feel better.
Well, and I've seen actually reviews, not necessarily related to books, but I've actually seen reviews on Amazon where people are like, this arrived late. How is that the person's Amazon's? You know what I mean? Amazon's the shipping. How do you not know? Yeah.
That drives me nuts.
I know that just makes me crazy. So everything is media. And media training is yes, there is still television, radio, the things, media training, but think about just everything is media. Right. And just to be prepared and watch what you're putting out there. Make sure that you have your elevator pitch, nailed down. And if you've written a controversial topic, here's the thing. If you've written a controversial topic, if you've written about, I don't know, whatever it is, right? You've written about, you really know what happened in XYZ crime story, or if you've written something political or something, you should expect people to ask you the tough questions or, say something equally controversial or whatever. So if you've written something controversial, just go into this. There's nothing wrong with that, but just expect it, saying something like, it's important for me to spark this conversation to, whatever that conversation is for you. Right. Amy, there's one final point that I know you and I talked about in the green room on this. And do you want to just share this? Because you and I don't know which one of us is more horrified at this, but sorry, I'm just big, huge lead in now for you.
Oh God. Wait, which one was it? Now I'm like,
It's the Amy's hot take. We talked about that.
right, sorry, you guys. I am not used to like anybody that knows me knows I am very much like the behind the scenes, behind the curtain person. Please do not like.
Oh, but she is so not behind this. Don't let her fool you. She's so not behind the scenes person. But go
Yeah.
on.
So yeah, my hot take. I love this. This is hilarious. I need a t-shirt. Never, ever, ever turn down an opportunity or an interview ever.
Ever. Sorry.
Ever. Like, no, I love it. Unless you are a household name already, you are not too good for any sort of coverage. We've talked about this a lot. Again, I will say it till I'm blue in the face, quality over quantity. Getting in, if an influencer has 2,000 followers, but you can tell that all of that is genuine and they get great engagement, that is a much better audience than the influencer with 20 million followers that promotes everything under the sun because they're getting paid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It absolutely.
There's no such thing as, I mean, look, if it's not a good fit for you, then I don't know why you pitched it in the first place. Sorry. Just, then, to make better choices, but never, ever, ever turn down an opportunity to do an interview, whether it's, podcast or just somebody interviewing on social or whatever. Every single interview that you do is a great way to refine your message, to prepare yourself, for the big time. And there's rarely an author that I've ever talked to who doesn't want the big ticket items. They don't, a big flashy billboard on Times Square, big national media, a huge book tour, all the things. None of those things ever start out by authors turning down interviews, like ever. Right.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, there's a great story, Chicken Soup for the Soul, which pretty much the whole story about Chicken Soup for the Soul pretty much followed me through the first, I would say, 10 years of my, running this business, because they were everywhere. These guys were everywhere. And I think they've kind of sort of retired. I mean, the brand is obviously still there, but, they've probably retired to their homes in Maui or some exotic place or whatever. But when you think about Chicken Soup for the Soul, you think about there's like 9 billion different variations of like Chicken Soup for the Fireman's Soul and the Equestrian Soul and whatever. Their secret, obviously, other than knowing the market, and I've cited them as an example before in prior shows, but their secret was never turning down a single interview. They would get up at, this is pre-podcasting when you could schedule it at a reasonable hour, but they would get up at 2, sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning to do interviews on radio stations in podunk little area towns. Everything's important. Everything matters. Never turned anything down. And look at where it got them.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess, the takeaways are: be prepared. Don't show up to Zoom with a sandwich or your cat.
Love that so much.
Or trying to do a costume change on camera, because that really annoys Penny and probably everybody else on the call.
Right. And be thoughtful in your responses. When you show up when you have time to really put the energy and thought into what you're putting out there too.
Yeah.
Don't just off the list.
Yeah, because you know what? Even if you never show up on video, even if you're like, I hate video, I will never be on video, people can sniff out authenticity in a social media post or a podcast interview very quickly. So, bring your authentic A game and your elevator pitch. And I think we've covered everything. We got Amy's hot take. I love that. I'm glad that you added that to the show, because that's obviously very key. And that's something that annoys me.
Character. I need to embrace it more. Okay.
You need to embrace what more? What?
My hot take, because clearly I was like, oh gosh, no. Like,
yes, you need to embrace your hot take. I think I don't know, y'all. Don't you think that Amy should have a hot take for every episode? I think that would be amazing. And you can let us know what you think about that by texting the word podcast to 888-402-8940. And thank you also for all the new reviews that we've gotten. You got us over 100. Now, next year, our goal is because we're always striving for a goal, 99 more reviews next year to get us to 200 by the end of 2026. So that That would be amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we will see you next week. And I guess that next week is Thanksgiving. So we may do a special rerun episode or something, but have a really good holiday, everybody. And thank you so much for listening. And we'll be back in your stream on Friday. Bye-bye.